Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us, and I hope all of you are having a great day so far. You are taking it easy because, hey, it is the end of the week, and we have a great show planned for you today. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and really looking forward to our conversation with the one, the only, and, I need to double check why, but the little bit displaced Ralph Bond himself. That's right, longtime Computer America correspondent, and of course, happy to have him on. But before we do that, a couple things to mention, including computeramerica.com. That's super important for today because you'll find things such as the show notes, which, when Ralph comes on, he has a number of different stories that we talk about, and everything that we talk about here today are, the articles in their entirety, sources, links, pictures, videos, everything you need are in the show notes. Also, while you're at Computer America, be sure to enter the social media contest, which is brought to you by Logitech. And yes, we will be giving away a prize from Logitech later on in the program. And then the last thing is, of course, the video feed where you can watch Computer America and not just listen. It's going to be good because you can follow along with the show notes while you watch and see any videos or demonstrations that we do during the program. Check it out on the video portion. So with all that said, there's actually, there's always more stories and news and tech stuff than there is time whenever we have Ralph on. So I think we're just going to go ahead and bring him on and get started here. So once again, he is a longtime Computer America correspondent. He worked with Intel for a long, long time before moving on over to Autodesk, where he currently sits, and is also an author and all-around great guy. Ralph, thanks for coming on Computer America. Congratulations. And of course, you're leaving you're leaving Autodesk with, on good terms. And, and just like we mentioned last time you were on the show, just because you're going to retire doesn't mean that you are going to be any less busy. So yeah, good luck. Yeah, so absolutely. And again, so from now on, you'll just be joining Computer America as a longtime correspondent, as a very knowledgeable guy, author, and of course, hey, just someone that we enjoy having on. So with that being said, why don't we, and before we move on to, everyone out there one more time, Computer America show notes, cheat sheet, everything right there. And before we move on to, story number one, something I did want to bring up with you, Ralph, mentioned just a second ago. Tesla had a very big announcement, and yesterday was our All Linux program, and even I think the Tesla presentation actually happened after the show, so this is our first opportunity to talk about it. But I kind of wanted to get your reaction because we've talked about Elon Musk and a number of his adventures, including Hyperloop, including SpaceX, things like that, and Tesla Roadster, that's their sport version of their car, was kind of the car that put Tesla on the map. So I kind of wanted your reaction to their latest and greatest that was just announced yesterday. And, for some reason, car guys and Tesla fans have been butting heads because it was all these techie nerds coming into the car space saying, this is the best. And car guys were saying, you really don't know what you're talking about. It's a good car, but it's not the best car. So, they've been butting heads, but on this one, I've seen a lot of consensus from both groups about the new Tesla Roadster that was just announced. Ralph, what would you say if I told you this new sports car, which is probably going to be unaffordable to 99% of us, it's it's like 120K starting or something like that. 0 to 60. What would you peg a good car at 0 to 60 in terms of seconds?
Or
Yeah. 0 to 60 for a conventional car or an electric car. Just what do you think a good speed is? Because I can tell you right now, Roadster already
5 seconds maybe. For like a really high performance gasoline engine car, would it be 5 seconds? I know I've heard the stat, but it's just skipping my mind. I was sort of counting 1,002, 1,003.
In 5 seconds, from 0 to 60, 5 seconds is very admirable. Some Ferraris and things like that, they've been known to do about 3 seconds. Tesla Roadster comes in at 1.9 seconds, 0 to 60.
Oh my gosh. And I've heard this about, of course, with electric motors. If you think back, I'm old enough to remember as a kid, we had the electric slot cars, right? The little toy slot cars on the tracks and all. And of course, those little electric motors, there's basically nothing to prevent it from going from no turning to incredible RPMs, right? Just boom. So I'm not surprised in a way, but that's all well and good. But let's bring in reality. If you put the pedal to the metal in a car like that and jump in 1.5 seconds or whatever the data you just laid out to 60 miles an hour, of course, that's horrendously unsafe. So you're going to almost have to have governors on that to prevent that from happening, right?
Well, and Tesla introduced with some of their other cars, I think it was like their Model S's and something like that.
Yeah.
Because you're right, electric motors, they're all torque. They don't have to kind of warm up.
There you go.
It's just bam, directly to the wheels. And I know that with ludicrous speed, as they called it, a kind of rip off of Spaceballs, but they the AI of the car actually kind of took over. So it was, the same technology that keeps your lane when you're driving. And that same technology would also do it. So it would kind of prevent you from, accidentally flicking the wheel and, getting into a horrible accident. Same kind of thing here.
Yeah.
So the Roadster would kind of keep itself in its lane while it's accelerating 0 to 60. So far, as I understand it, they're not going to be altering that whatsoever. So the production car you buy from Tesla, the Roadster, will be able to do 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know what, Ben, related to Tesla and Tesla Motors and so forth, I heard this from public radio, a segment about their new freight truck. So let's shift gears from the exotic sports car crowd to freight. And if I heard this story right, I think I did, they said that this freight truck they've developed, and here's the clinker, what's the range? Because if it doesn't have a good range, it's all kind of just theoretical. This freight truck, Tesla claims, can go 500 miles before needing to be recharged. Right. Now, I don't know what the size of the freight truck is. I don't know what its load capacity is. But any kind of freight truck of any reasonable size that can go that distance and be electric is groundbreaking. And they said there was tremendous interest in the shipping industry in this announcement that, again, I heard for the first time today. Maybe it's been out for a couple of days.
Right. Yeah. And, supposedly this is a Class 8 truck. I'm not sure what that means. I'm sure truckers out there understand what Class 8 means, but it's supposedly one of the larger ones, almost one of the largest freight trucks you could have. And while it's not going to be, obviously you're right, you're still going to need the infrastructure to support long haul, kind of thing.
Right.
But there's already these cars that are shipping parts between plants here in America. They're, just between two facilities. A lot of stuff is 500 miles apart, so it's very impressive. And not to backtrack too much, but the Roadster, despite the acceleration, which is cool, some other specs real quick about that thing. Before we move on to our stories, 250 miles an hour top speed. So this car can go 250 miles an hour. Pretty incredible for a production car. And then speaking of range, which you're right, is one part where electric cars, kind of unfortunately don't meet their gas brethren. 620 miles on a single charge with the Roadster. Over 600 miles. That's impressive.
Gee. That makes sense. I mean, that probably for 99 and 9/10% of the kind of driving any of us normally would do, that range is more than adequate. That's impressive. And switching back
Yeah.
gears to the freight truck we were just talking about, 500-mile range. What's to say you couldn't resurrect the old Pony Express model? And what I mean by that is, imagine a trucking situation where the storage box, if you will, of the freight truck is like they are for trains and removable, and you could go your 400 or 500 miles and then just transfer the box over to the fully charged vehicle and keep going. So in other words, you could have this kind of relay, Pony Express kind of concept could be a possibility when you get that kind of range of 500 miles. But to your point, I'll bet you if you did a study of trucking ranges, 500 miles is probably a range that's probably embraces the overwhelming majority of the freight trucks that are on the road right now, right? So yeah, it's the whole electric thing in vehicles. I think we're at a turning point. I think a lot of it has to do with innovations in battery technology, getting the batteries lighter and better and longer range capabilities, and that's equaling these breakthroughs, I suspect. That's my guess.
And battery breakthroughs do seem to pop up a lot whenever you're on the show, because we like to talk about battery breakthroughs. But and your analogy, by the way, of the Pony Express, I thought you were going to take it where instead of the Pony Express, instead of switching out horses every 50 miles or whatever it was, with these Tesla freight trucks, you just swap out the batteries. Like, you don't wait for them to charge. You just swap out the
that's a good
packs,
point. Sure, you could do that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, you could. In fact, you could have. Well, let's play more of this game. You could have in the Pony Express station stops in this fantasy world, you'd have these charging farms where you'd have the batteries, and the batteries would be modular. You just pull out the spent battery, pop it into the charging farm rack, pull out a good one, pop it in, truck driver waves goodbye, and it's on his way. Oh my gosh, that could be fun. I love it.
Even faster. And of course, Tesla is also working on self-driving trucks and self-driving cars. So
right.
But you're right. We're gonna move on to our stories. But yesterday, but I did want to bring up about Tesla because they are pushing what it means to be electric vehicles, and it's new, so it was awesome.
Yes.
All right, so everyone, so from here on out, everything that we do will be covered in the cheat notes at computeramerica.com. And so let's start with right after Ralph's smiling face. Why don't we go ahead and start with story number one?
Yeah, story number one. This is fun. More technology kind of stuff here. This comes from a United Kingdom's publication called New Electronics, a story by Graham Pitcher. And the headline is Flexible Terahertz Detector Uses Graphene Transistors. So this one's pretty out there on the science edge here, but kind of fun. Of course, as Ben was saying, the show notes have the link. We also have a link to a video that you can watch too, which is a lot of fun. But let me get into the story here. And it says, researchers at Chalmers University of Technology have developed a flexible detector for terahertz frequencies, which features graphene transistors on plastic substrates. And of course, we've been hearing about graphene over the last number of years for all kinds of possibilities. And hey, just a little side tutorial note, terahertz, abbreviated THZ, is a unit of electromagnetic wave frequency equal to 1 trillion hertz. Holy smokers. Anyway, back to the story. It says the device, said to be the first of its kind, has the potential to extend the use of terahertz technology to applications that will require flexible electronics, such as wireless sensor networks and wearable technology. And of course, wearable technology, Ben, over the last several years has been such a huge buzz in the industry. It goes on to say, at room temperature, the device can detect frequencies ranging from 330 to 500 gigahertz. Then it says, one challenge has been the need to develop a process that enables the creation of low-weight and cheap applications, while advances in polymer technology have promoted the development of flexible electronics and enabled the production of high-frequency units on flexible substrates. Chalmers researchers, and I won't go through all the names, you can get the names of the researchers in the show notes. Chalmers researchers have now developed a mechanically flexible, graphene-based terahertz detector, translucent and flexible. The process is said to be suitable for a variety of applications, including terahertz imaging and a sensor for identifying different substrates. So this is a pretty geeky story, all right? But it's just another indication of, I always catches my eye when I ever see something about graphene. It's just something that blows my mind out. It's morphing into so many different possibilities, and here in this flexible terahertz detector, which I thought was kind of a geeky, weird story.
Right, but this is the technology that we're going to need for, so many things, because our current infrastructure isn't really set up enough. Where, Ralph, we talked about the possibilities with other stories before, that there's a future where not only is your phone, tablet, computer, security system, blah, 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 hooked up to the internet, but it's also every piece of clothing you own, every piece of food that you buy and, put in your fridge, every little thing in your life is eventually going to make it onto the Internet of Things. This is the kind of technology we need to, handle all that new traffic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, the joke, which is always worth repeating, graphene, it can do anything except make it out of the laboratory. So I'm glad that they're still finding uses for it, but graphene, it's hard to finally see it come into the market. So,
well, yeah. Well, be of good cheer, because think about Edison and how long it took him to get a light bulb out of the laboratory, but eventually it did.
And look at us now, so many light bulbs. So with that being said, story number 2, artificial intelligence. And yeah, so this is very, very exciting, because I know mental health obviously been playing a larger and larger part in a lot of people's lives, and it's not stigmatized as it is, but treating it as not a set of emotions, but rather a physical ailment, is something that still needs a lot of research. So tell us about this one, and this one looks promising.
Yeah, this one clearly caught my attention. The headline is Artificial Intelligence Detects Suicidal Tendencies in People Using Brain Scans. Wow, talk about a headline that's just packed with possibilities. This is a story from Gizmodo and a story by Kristen V. Brown. And again, the show notes, there's some great images, there's links and all this good stuff. But let's get into this story. It says, recent scientific progress has allowed us to begin decoding the significance of many different patterns of activity in the brain. Well, I think most of us are aware of that kind of research over the last several decades, in fact. Goes on to say, researchers have begun to understand patterns associated with disorders such as depression in hopes of correcting it. Other research has zeroed in on how language and speech is signaled in the brain, and I think we're aware of that too. In one often cited experiment, researchers were even able to convert the MRI readouts of the test subjects' brains into approximate renditions of the movie clips shown to participants. You have to let that sink in. It's a pretty esoteric thing there.
I actually remember when that happened, and essentially what they were saying was, because movie clips are one thing, and it was a control, but essentially what they're saying is that if science develops to the point where they get better at that same technique, you could actually read people's minds. Like that was the summation of that research. Eventually, we can read people's minds.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, that's the kind of depth of the implications here are pretty intriguing. But again, this article is about trying to help with detecting. The key here is detecting suicidal patients and so forth. So it says now, new research seeks to use artificial intelligence to identify people suffering from suicidal thoughts based on brain scans alone. Now, in a paper published this week in Nature Human Behavior, now this story was filed on Halloween, the 31st of October, so again, it's fairly recent. Researchers from Carnegie Mellon University looked at 34 participants, half of whom were experiencing suicidal thoughts. So there's your test group here. Study participants all underwent functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is fMRI, during which they were shown words related to suicide, such as death and distressed, as well as words related to positive and negative emotions. Based on the participants, that had already been identified as suicidal. They were able to identify 5 regions of the brain and 6 words that helped to identify those that were suicidal. Based on that information, they were able to train an algorithm to identify suicidal patients. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. It says, of the 34 participants, the algorithm correctly identified 15 of the 17 suicidal patients and 16 of the 17 members of the control group. In a second experiment, researchers also divided participants with suicidal thoughts into 2 groups. One group that had attempted suicide and one that had not. A separate algorithm was also able to correctly categorize 16 of those 17 patients. That's pretty darn good results. And great little segue here. It transitions into this point. Why is this important? For one, it gives us insight into how the brains of healthy people and suicidal people differ. In suicidal patients, for example, the word death triggered a reaction in the region of the brain associated with shame. Isn't that interesting? That's just so interesting. It also may one day provide an additional tool to help diagnose and treat mental health disorders. And this goes to your point earlier about how more and more every day that goes by, we're understanding addiction and depression and other things that our ancestors deemed weaknesses and failures and sin, even for that matter, into clinically diagnosable and in some cases closely tied to genetics or physical issues, right? Not just you're a weak person or a fool or right. So I think this is really interesting. It goes on to say psychiatric illnesses are complicated, and often not all that well understood in terms of where they exist in the brain. That's why, for example, the symptoms of disorders like depression often seem vague. A diagnosis of major depressive disorder requires a person to exhibit 5 of 9 symptoms, but 2 people could wind up with the same diagnosis and have almost no symptoms in common. So that's kind of one of the problems. Understanding, so here's the rub, understanding where in the brain those problems are occurring could one day lead to more effective means of treating them. That's why I like this article. That's why I think this research is promising and to your point, so helpful in making this a clinical and not a judgmental kind of situation when it comes to depression and suicide.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting because the way that they worded it, we did this story a number of years ago, and I actually met some friends where their dad had seizures, and we talked about an article a couple years ago about a chip that they could implant in people's brains, and you could control it, and essentially you would weaken the electrical impulses that cause seizures, and essentially you could turn off seizures with a remote control. That's something that we did a while ago.
That's great.
Yeah, and this kind of, like the wording in this article kind of makes me think that one day there may be something similar where you can either activate or deactivate certain parts of the brain, again, like the part that causes shame, and it kind of makes me think that if we do this right, the treatment for it may be actually, stimulating certain parts of the brain and, reducing the activity in others, hopefully, and again, to our point before, treating depression and other emotional, things that we're seen as emotional, treating them as physical and hopefully really treating them. So.
It's very interesting and very promising research.
Right, and by the way, folks, again, the images that show, 2 different brain scans, and you could definitely see, the activity, what they're talking about. Looks like a bunch of messed up pixels. It looks like a fragmented and a defragmented hard drive, and yeah, that's how they identify it. It's very, very interesting. So definitely go check that out.
I have to laugh because I remember in the old days when you defrag your hard drive, right, in Windows at least, you could opt to have a graphical thing that would show, by color little tiles and stuff, where the fragments were, and then you could sit there and watch it combine fragments into consistent, data groups, right?
It was fun.
And if you're a geek when you thought that was entertainment.
It was fun though, seeing you see everything red and everything, disorganized, and then it sorts everything into nice green color with little blue segments that can't be moved. Oh, of course, it was fun.
Oh gosh, yeah. And you know what? I'm sorry to segue here, but from years gone by, defrag was something kind of I did like flossing my teeth, maybe every month or something like defrag. Now I haven't thought about defragging my hard drive in the longest time ever. Yeah, should I, or is this something now that's magically done when I'm not aware? I don't know.
SSDs, solid state drive, which I think a lot of people still use, not necessary. And for a lot of hard drives out there, it was a bigger issue when you needed, the space, like when hard drives were, 32 megabytes or 1 gigabyte. Being able to defrag and save on space and, the speed and the read-write speeds.
And speed, yeah.
Essentially, the tech has gotten to the point where not necessary. If you have a traditional hard drive, probably do it, every 6 months. If you have an SSD, don't bother doing it. It doesn't work the same way. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Fun fact, everyone.
Yeah, it brought back memories.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, story number 3, and folks, we're probably gonna have extra stories here if you want to go do some homework, but we can at least start on story number 3 before we hit our mid-hour break. And conductive thread stores data enclosed with built-in text. So, like I said earlier about the graphene and the wireless signals, wearable technology. I think we all know about watches and things like that. But this story that you found, this is about everything else I was talking about.
Oh, yeah. And of course, the headline like conductive thread stores data in clothing without built-in tech. I mean, those are the kind of headlines that grab my attention. This is from Engadget, story by Rob Lefevre. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. You can see it in the show notes. And like you say, we just got a little bit of time before the break, so just holler when you need me to stop.
Sure.
Let's get started, though. The new technology may soon be able pardon me, let me try that again. New technology may soon enable you to get into your home or office with nothing more than your coat, wristband, or tie. Scientists at the University of Washington have found a way to create smart fabric using only conductive thread with no other added electronics. What an opener, right? I mean, you just go, what? It's pretty cool. The team manipulated the polarity of magnetized fabric in cloth patches to encode different types of data, which so far can include 2D images and strings of bits, which can store things like passwords. The data can then be read with a standard smartphone using its inbuilt magnetometer, wrote the researchers. That's the key here to this story, being able to read this data with a standard smartphone, right? Instead of having to have some kind of special device.
Yeah.
They also found out that magnetized fabric won't lose data when washed, ironed, or dried. The team developed a glove made of the smart fabric that was able to perform gestures in front of a smartphone with 90% accuracy. The scientists said the fabric can be used in a variety of accessories too, like necklaces, wristbands, ties, and belts that can carry data within them. And it goes on to say, while the smart fabric patches created by the researchers lost around 30% of their original magnetic field of strength after a week, they were able to be remagnetized and retain at least partial field strength for months. The researchers also note that this new tech has the advantage over RFID technology in that any basic smartphone with a magnetometer can access the data, while RFID tags require specialized readers that fit the tag's specific frequency in the 120 kilohertz to 10 gigahertz band. And there's a little quote from the scientists, RFID readers can cost hundreds to thousands of dollars, the scientists wrote. So this is the clinker here that makes this story so exciting. Magnetometers are as cheap as 78 cents, or magnetometers are as cheap. Now, why are they saying that? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Pardon me. So they're saying that the magnetometers that are in our smartphones, right, are cheap. They're like 78 cents, 10,000 times cheaper than some RFID readers. 10,000 times cheaper than an RFID reader. So each magnetized fabric tag costs 17 cents. This is competitive with RFID tag prices. So you've got a competitive tag price and readers that are any smartphone.
Right, and
Wow.
it seems like the researchers, and by the way, music means we're going to take a break, but it sounds like the researchers, this is the technology that will be the next step in, theft prevention in stores. So, or even tracking items. But everyone, once again, music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. More Ralph Bond and more, tech news right after this. Stay tuned.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. We are, it's 31 minutes past the hour. I'm sorry, as we continue on here with Ralph Bond. And and I apologize for sounding a bit disjointed because I'm trying to sign into Ralph. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Like I've grown so completely accustomed to websites remembering my information, and I've reset everything because I'm an idiot, and it's hard to remember all the different little accounts. So I'm trying to get the account to get the winner for this week's show. So that's gonna have to come a little bit later as we work on it, but. Folks, if you're just joining us, Ralph Bond, we're doing Computer and Tech News. Check it out in the show notes for all the articles if you missed any. But something I did want to bring up, Ralph, again, I'm going to kind of deviate, because it's similar to what we just talked about. And, I'm sure if we were a couple days later with these articles, this one would have made it into yours. But I wanted to see if you heard about the first ever... let me get the title of this thing right. The first ever digital pill. So pill that you swallow, as in medication.
I think I did hear something about that.
Probably, yeah. And we were just talking about the technology to, this latest article that we just mentioned was one about RFID tags and essentially, having everyday objects feed you data. And I thought, a pill that you could swallow that would feed, a system data is right in the same vein. So, folks, if you feel like going out and doing some homework, the FDA did just approve the first ever digital pill that will essentially keep sending data as it makes its way through your system.
Well, a gastroendocrinologist would love that, I'm sure.
Luckily, no flash photography allowed, but and it worked in a very similar way, but at the same time, this sends a signal to a patch that the patient wears. And the cool thing I liked about that, because we were talking about privacy issues, essentially the patient has the final say into whether or not you hand over that data from the pill to the doctor. So it's not like real time sent off to a server. It's all self-contained until you decide you're ready to give it over. So
gotcha.
So but wireless technology and being able to read things, super, super impressive. So, all right. So we have, everyday smartphones can be the new way to track clothing. Let's see. Story number 4, Hyperloop. That is a technology that we keep hearing about, in bits and pieces. Finally, looks like someone's willing to give it a chance. So what do you got?
Yeah, this is. You were making the comment about graphene can do everything in the world as soon as it gets out of the lab, right? And the promise of hyperloops is something that's been really looked at and generated a lot of interest, but a lot of head scratching about, can we make this come to reality? So that's what caught my eye. This comes from a publication called Construction Dive. So this is a publication for the construction trade industry, and it certainly was interesting. In the headline, Hyperloop route construction to begin in 2019. It's a story by Mary Tyler March. And let's get into the story here. Oh, and by the way, just a quick segue. If you're not familiar with Hyperloop, Hyperloop's an ultra-high-speed ground transportation system proposed in 2013 by Elon Musk, co-founder of PayPal, Tesla. We were talking about Tesla Motors a moment ago, and founder of space transport company SpaceX, right? So that's what this Hyperloop is all about. So here's the story. It says, Virgin Hyperloop One has announced its intentions to break ground on a Hyperloop route in 2019, according to a magazine called Futurism. It's still unclear where construction will take place, though a route connecting Cheyenne, Wyoming to Denver and Pueblo, Colorado is a strong contender. Tests at a production level, according to the company CEO Rob Loy, so that's the Virgin Hyperloop One company they're talking about, are expected to begin in 2021. Now, the magazine does its kind of assessment of this story, right? They call it the dive brief. So here's a few points they wanted to raise. Colorado transportation officials will spend the next 9 months calculating the resources needed to bring a Rocky Mountain Hyperloop system to the area, USA Today reported. The next bullet they have here is the proposed $24 billion route would have a central hub at Denver International Airport. That certainly makes sense. And extend 100 miles north to Cheyenne, Wyoming, 125 miles south to Pueblo, Colorado, and 100 miles west to Vail, Colorado. And the last little bullet here in this very short piece, the state officials are working with AECOM. AECOM is a very well-known architecture, engineering, and construction firm. It's a big heavyweight. So state officials in Colorado are working with AECOM and Virgin Hyperloop One, formerly simply called Hyperloop One, to study the system's potential. That study is expected to wrap up next summer. So this is a stay tuned story, but to your point, Ben, it indicates some real tangible pedal to the metal, shovels to the dirt. Let's see if we can make one of these things and make it work. And if we can, it can be transformative.
So yeah, and the new information that I kind of gathered from this was, and this is something I heard a little while ago. You mentioned at the article starts with Virgin Hyperloop One. So the plane company, travel company, they've obviously taken an interest. And I thought that when they were going to make the first one, they were actually going to make it in Europe. So the fact that they're still talking about the United States and North America, I found that interesting. But yeah, they recently got a bunch of funding through Virgin Atlantic, and hey, it's coming somewhere. We just need to know where it's going to first.
Oh yeah. No, it is. It's just an encouraging notch forward in the progress of maybe getting this to be real, and then seeing how it works and seeing how consumers feel about one of these experiences in transportation. So we shall see.
It's certainly a weird time because obviously self-driving cars, they're just around the corner. Like I literally mean 3 to 5 years, people are going to start seeing them on roads. And I'm sure, Ralph, you heard about the one in Vegas that it was a self-driving bus that unfortunately got into an accident just last month. And
that's right.
Yeah, so they're already hitting the streets. It's going to be interesting because you have Hyperloop, which is very, very fast and can take you on very set routes. Self-driving cars, soon to be electric planes. I mean, travel is going to be very different in 10 years.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And hey, Ben, if I may suggest, why don't we pop over to story 6? Story 5 is really interesting, folks. It's a story about some paper and research done about the transition from government to entrepreneurial space age and so forth. It's interesting, and I encourage you to go check it out. But I think given where we are with the clock, if I may suggest, let's pop down to story 6, because listeners, you can go and get the show notes and read the story 5, but I think we'd like to kind of move along because we want to cover as much stuff as we can.
We will, but only after we announce this week's winner. So,
Yay.
yeah, and so everyone out there, one more time, we do a social media contest where if you are so kind as to go out and support Computer America, wherever you can find Computer America, be that places like SoundCloud, Facebook, Google, Twitter, Twitch.tv, many, many other places, well, you are entered to win a prize from Logitech, and we are still giving away the M720 Triathlon mouse. Runs off of one AA battery for like 3 years. Can control up to 3 devices, Bluetooth technology, blah, blah, blah. Very, very cool mouse, and happy to give it away to a lucky listener. This week's winner is, no drum roll because I unfortunately deleted the sound bite, but this week's winner is someone called Man-Her, and I like to think that no one out there is named Man-Her. If you are, wonderful name, beautiful, never heard anything better. But the actual name and stuff like that isn't really important because we'll get all your information when we send it out from Logitech. But anyways, listens to us in Alameda, California. There we go. And they won by following Computer America on Twitter. So, Man-Her, if you're listening, congratulations. Thank you so much. And we'll have Logitech contact you after the show. But there you go, another winner. And folks, we'll have another one coming up. Wow, wait, next week, by the way, everyone, no Computer America Thursday and Friday because Thanksgiving. So, yeah, we'll have one, but we won't announce it until the following week. But yeah, yep, there you go. This week's winner, there you have it. If you want to win, check it out, computeramerica.com. So, Ralph, I leave it in your very capable hands. Talking about teeth care when you're talking about flossing your teeth and hard drives. Talking about tooth care, what do you got here?
Yeah, we'll go from the lofty scientific breaking the edge of the frontiers of human accomplishments and blah, 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 to, get this, a battery-free toothbrush is powered with a twist. And this is a story from Engadget, a story by John Fingus. I love his stories. I've been reading him for years. And it's a hoot and a half. So again, if you have the show notes, you can see the picture and all this sort of thing. And it seems mundane, but it could be actually kind of a great thing in terms of simple, clever technology. So the story says battery-powered toothbrushes are convenient if you don't like brushing your teeth the old-fashioned way, but they have a catch: batteries. Duh. Typically, you either need to dock your brush and remember to carry a charger with you on long trips, or toss disposables when they're done, which today I don't think any of us want to do if we can avoid that.
Right.
There may be a better way soon. Goodwell Company is crowdfunding an offering they call BE, like the English word be, right? Which it bills as the first battery-free powered toothbrush. Battery-free powered toothbrush? Well, here you go. Twist the base twice, and a kinetic energy storage mechanism will vibrate the brush head for up to 2 minutes. Wait, twist it twice. You get 2 minutes of vibration, or just long enough for that dentist-recommended cleaning.
Exactly.
And you don't have to connect to a charger, and you won't contribute to landfills by chucking out batteries. The bristles are of course interchangeable because they will wear out, but the bristles they've designed for this product, by the way, are biodegradable. So this is a pretty earth-friendly solution in the category of powered toothbrush. And then it goes on to say, as you may surmise, there's a catch: the brushes aren't cheap. Well, neither are those electric brushes like Sonicare and all that stuff. Those aren't cheap either, friends. But it goes on to say, early backers can get a starter kit for $49, which gives you a brush, 3 head refills, and a travel case. But there were only a few dozen left as of this writing. Again, this story was also filed on October the 31st. And there weren't many more for the $89 cleaning kit or the $96 2-pack either. So I don't know. You'd have to go out online and see what's currently still available or not. Now it says and you'll have to wait until December 2018, not this December, 1 year from this December, even if you do get a pledge in. If Goodwell pulls this off, though, it'll be no small feat. You'll have a powered brush you can take on vacation knowing it won't conk out in mid-scrub. And think of all kinds of applications, military folks in the field, or anybody who's out in the field or away from electricity. and so forth. This could be a great, and this twisting kinetic energy storage mechanism they're talking about could have applications in other things as well, right? So I just thought this was a kick in the butt. Seems mundane, but I think it has some really interesting possibilities.
You know, and I think you're right, where electric toothbrushes, it's something that a lot of people take for granted, but hey, if you're out camping or spending extended time out in the field, like you said, then it could be one less convenience you have to give up, hey, just by getting this. And by the way, I went out to the Kickstarter or whatever, and crowdfunding, I think it's Kickstarter, where they were well funded, $300,000 of their $20,000 met, and there's like 20 left. So folks, if you're listening and you're interested, there's like 20 left of every category. So if you want one, might not be there here in another day or so, but it's coming to market.
Yeah, and it's encouraging to hear that it's got the funding and that it's going and so forth, because I think it's a simple but a clever idea, and I applaud the idea of reducing landfill with these battery things and also the biodegradable toothbrushes. They put some thought into this thing, and I think it's a really good kick.
They did. So, yeah, but I probably still wouldn't recommend just chucking it anywhere, but biodegradable, definitely good. So with this next one and, Google, these home devices, I'm going to ask you, Ralph, just personally, have you bought into any digital assistants yet? And I kind of mean, like, when I first started asking this question, I meant Siri or Cortana. But at this point, those two are so outdated compared to obviously Amazon's and Google's offerings. Do you have a personal assistant?
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about doing that. I'm really intrigued from a want perspective, as my wife would clearly discern, versus a need perspective. I would enjoy playing around with one of the Amazon devices, Echo devices, and or the Google, and if money were no object, to have both, because it'd be fun to play them off each other. But anyway, the closest thing I have is an Amazon Fire Stick for my TV, you know the product, where you can take your little remote and you can talk to it and you can ask it to play, I don't know, you can say play Beatles music or take me to old Dragnet reruns or whatever. And that voice command and that kind of experience with Alexa in that form has been a lot of fun for me, and it makes me lean toward wanting to have one of these Echo devices and or this Google Home device.
Right.
It's just again, as my wife clearly points out, that's a want versus a need.
Right. So, but absolutely, and personally, I'm probably leaning towards the Alexa as well. But no, we're here to talk about Google and Home, and maybe one of these stories one day is gonna push your wife into saying, all right, we have to have one of those. So maybe this is it.
Maybe, and I think that what's happening, this story is indicative of where all these products are going, and that is more and more and more of companion products that leverage that voice command and that environment of your wireless home network and all these things, the Internet of Things, right, that you hear so much about. This is just a good indication of how it's gathering steam. So the story's from Engadget. It's another story by Rob Lefebvre, and the title is Google Lists All Devices Home Supports for Easy Reference. So the Google Home solution, right? And so I think, again, there's so many products coming out for both the Amazon offering and now the Google offering in this category that you might think, where can I go to one place and just see what's currently available to get an idea of which, if this product's going to do some things for me I might not even know it can do, right? So here's the story. It says a number of gadgets Google Home supports is getting pretty large these days. That's very true. According to the company, more than 1,000 smart home devices from more than 150 brands play nice with its smart speakers to control things around your house. That's quite a lot of gadgets. If you're looking for a way to find out whether or not your Google Home Mini or Max will work with the specific smart devices you have in your own home, or I would say if you are thinking of buying, the company has provided a new support page. We have the links in the show notes, folks, that lists all the compatible gear, and I'm sure they're going to keep this thing up to date too. So in the show notes, I've got the list for you, or the link here for that list. It's kind of fun to go out and check it out. Goes on to say the support page offers a long, alphabetized list of all the partner brands that Google Home supports, including Anova, Culinary, Alarm.com, Electrolux, Frigidaire, Firefly Home, Honeywell, and Lowe's devices. And it says here, you can filter the list at the top with the brand name or device type. That's good. And each entry has a link to its respective support page. Now, you've got a place to head the next time you want to purchase a smart device to confirm it will work with your Google Home. I wonder if there's an equivalent to this for the Amazon Echo line of products. You would think there should be. But anyway, this is for the folks, if you have a Google Home device or you're thinking about getting one and you're curious about what kind of satellite devices or companion Play Nice devices are out there, this is a great resource to go and check out.
Right, and there's something similar for for Amazon, but they have essentially skills. Instead of all these companies, they tell you what skills they have, and it's not as user friendly as a giant list of links. So it's a little more buried, a little more convoluted, but it's probably out there somewhere. I definitely do like this one, and you're right. It does really highlight when you see a list of 200 different companies that can work with your device, it shows you, wow, these things are starting to get really, really useful.
Oh yeah, to me, it's the corollary would be our smartphones.
Yeah.
So first you had the Apple iPhone, and then all the Android-based phones, Samsung being the leader, and then the world of applications that just said, oh, we've got this platform. I can write an app for it. I can write this solution for it. I can write appending companion devices and so forth. So the same kind of explosion of offerings that make our smartphones these stunningly versatile things, I predict, and it's already a fact, we're seeing happen with these home companion devices like the Amazon Echo and the Google Home devices. So it's pretty interesting. By the way, Microsoft has an offering in this category that's pretty obscure. I can't even remember the name of the product right now, but they've even tried their hand at entering this as well.
Wait, I'm sorry, who? Apple?
Microsoft. Yeah, Microsoft has an offering that's trying to...
Yeah,
what's it called? I can't remember what it's called right now.
Is their digital assistant? But Microsoft wanted to bring Cortana into standalone control. I know that the Apple HomePod is coming out here soon during the holiday season, so Apple's going to be a competitor as well. It's an expanding field, but you're right. It's going to be which one does the most. Just like with smartphones, which smartphone did the most things, became kind of dominant. So here we go. But in these last 6 or so minutes, Ralph, I think we have to talk about AIBO because we mentioned it a couple times, but at the same time, AIBO was a hit a number of years ago. It was very desirable, and even back in the late 90s, it was very impressive what a quote unquote robotic dog could do. With today's technology, this looks way more exciting.
Yeah, it's fun. A fun story. It's from Ars Technica, story by Ron Amadio, and the headline is Sony's AIBO robot dog is back. Gives us OLED puppy dog eyes. And OLED is the light-emitting diode containing thin, flexible sheets of an organic electroluminescent material used for visual displays, if you're wondering about what OLED is all about. And, of course, we have a cute little picture. So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. The article starts off with, weird, Sony is back. And it recently announced a new version of Sony AIBO, everyone's favorite robotic dog toy. Sony has been out of the plastic pooch business for about 11 years. And the 2017 version is well equipped for the smartphone era with LTE and an app. Sadly, like seemingly every AIBO ever, the pup is only for sale in Sony's hometown, home country it should say, of Japan. But we can still love it from afar. AIBO tries to replicate a real dog and doesn't do much else. The new version has 22 axes, is that the proper way to pronounce it, of motion. The legs let it walk, shake hands, sit, play with a ball, scratch a digital itch, and do hundreds of other dog things. The tail wags, the ears move, the mouth opens, and the head turns and tilts making it seem rather expressive in the videos. AIBO is equipped with a 64-bit quad-core CPU, touch sensors on the head, chin, and back for pet detection, as in petting, a speaker for making dog noises, and 4 microphones for voice commands. AIBO has a pair of OLED puppy dog eyes, which it uses to blink and wink, but it actually sees via a nose camera and an SLAM, or simultaneous localization and mapping, set up in the mouth. What? Just like a real dog, owning AIBO is pretty expensive. Adopting a purebred AIBO costs 170,000 yen, about $1,739 US, through Sony's online store. So this is a pretty spendy little trinket. And while you get to skip out on the daily kibble bill, you'll apparently still need to feed your pup a steady diet of megabytes. Little tongue-in-cheek there. Buying an AIBO.
And Ralph, I'm going to have to stop it there because I definitely want to talk about this a bit. And unfortunately, we're running really close up to the break, so not going to get to too much of it. But I did want to say that Craig was very fond of his AIBO when he got it a couple of back in the mid-2000s. And while the price tag, the old one was about the same, I'll be honest with you. I don't quite recall what he sold it for, but these things are, kind of collector's editions. They're kind of like collector's toys that it shows technology at the time where it was. And, honestly, if you were able to get your hands on one, you'd probably be able to resell it for even more. So the price is one thing, but the thing I want to talk to you about this was the fact that, as you know, Japan and robots hand in hand. I've heard that, just like our previous story about the smart speakers, Sony was actually looking to bring smart speaker technology into AIBOs. And I kind of want your reaction about how, instead of having, a little pod that sits on your coffee table, what if you had like an AIBO that would follow you around and could do everything an Alexa could do?
That's, what a great concept. I think that could push some consumers who might never consider a robotic dog, who would consider that just a fancy, high-tech, spendy toy, to something where they could rationalize it in their head. That's really intriguing, because if it were everything my Amazon Echo or Google Home device was in terms of being this kind of attendant, and a controller and attendant, but one that could follow you around, or you could pick it up and take it to the next room with you and so forth. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I think you're onto something there. I think Sony, that could be pretty intriguing. What I would think would be kind of cool, if Sony would ever consider it, would be collaborating with either Google or collaborating with Amazon to take all that's there and existing and just make the dog a virtual tool to access the infrastructure and all the attendant products, instead of trying to have their own and completely independent tower of solution, right? So, but I love that idea. I think that could be really comical and cool.
It's really, it's not too far-fetched. Am I allowed to say that about a dog? Far-fetched? All right, so it's not too far-fetched. I know, it was really bad. But it's not too far to think about, essentially talking to AIBO like you would any other dog, but then saying, AIBO, kill the lights in the living room, and then the lights would go out in the living room, because it's like a smart speaker. It would be able to control your lights, your door lock, your security system. It's and again, the fact that this is happening in Japan, where Japan is very up and up on the possibility of
90
robotics.
seconds.
Hey, this is truly possible. So, Ralph, the music means we are just flat out of time, and folks, there's still plenty of stories if you want to go check them out, or catch up on any that we did do at computeramerica.com. Ralph, last day, I hope that it was a good one, and of course, we are looking forward to having you back on here next month. But Ralph, what are your plans?
Oh gosh, you actually kind of consider this my entry into semi-retirement.
60 seconds.
And I'm hoping maybe a few months down the road to come back and maybe do some spot projects with my dear friends at Autodesk. Just love that company. and maybe some other technology companies too. And I'm particularly excited about maybe doing podcast production for people and so forth. So who knows what the future will bring? We'll all just have to see it unfold. But exciting for me too is to continue contributing to you guys and building on our relationship.
Absolutely, absolutely. Love to have you here. And folks, if you miss any part of that, you can check out the podcast version, and of course we have archives on our website, and of course a link to Ralph's website as well. So in the meantime, Ralph, thank you for coming on, and everyone else out there, thank you for tuning in to Computer America. Catch you next week. Again, short week, Thanksgiving. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and yeah, catch you next time. Have a great one. Bye-bye.